Noise-making and fireworks on New Year's Eve are believed to have originated in ancient times when noise and fire were thought to dispel evil spirits and bring good luck. The Chinese are famous for the invention of fireworks and using them to spectacular effect in their New Year's celebrations. But it was one U.S. city that rang in 2022 with the biggest bang.
January 1st, 2022. It's just another cloudy morning in Pittsburgh. But before residents could even start making good on their New Year's resolutions, the emergency services hotline lights up with complaints of homes being shaken and rattled after a loud noise was reported. Let's look at that again. The security footage shows a sleepy morning in someone's backyard when it is suddenly rocked by what sounds like a bomb going off. Pittsburgher Martin Ibeck was tinkering in his garage when he experienced this strange event.
What I heard was a rather thunderous boom, and I'd never heard that sound before. When I posted my video to social media, most people really felt that it was probably extraterrestrial.
Investigative journalist MJ Benaya says that while some viewers jumped to conclusions about UFOs, many others pointed the finger at our very own Air Force.
According to witness testimony, this sound had a radius of about 30 miles, so thousands of people in Pittsburgh heard this sound. With any loud mystery boom sound, people are going to start theorizing as to what caused it. The most common reason is that this was some sort of aircraft breaking the sound barrier or creating what we call a sonic boom. All new aircraft that are being designed ultimately have a sort of bar they have to reach, and that's the current F-22 Raptor. The F-22 can reach speeds of Mach 2.5, which equals to 1,500 miles per hour, and it can reach altitudes nearing 70,000 feet. It's possible that something flew over Pittsburgh that day and broke the sound barrier.
Benaya says there's another more mysterious global phenomenon that may help us explain what we're hearing in Pittsburgh.
Some people theorize that what we're looking at is a phenomenon known as skyquakes. A skyquake is basically a loud boom sound, and there's some people who believe that it has a supernatural explanation.
Check out this still unexplained skyquake from San Diego last year.
We don't really know what causes skyquakes, but we do know that people have recorded them. So something is clearly causing these sounds to occur, and that is the big mystery.
In New York, skyquakes are known as Seneca guns, after Seneca Lake in the central region of the state. The sounds were immortalized in James Fenimore Cooper's classic story, The Lake Gun. To find out if Pittsburgh's famous Three Rivers could have generated a similar effect, we turn to our experts.
First up, our new audio forensics expert, Ed Primo.
So in a jet breaking the sound barrier, we would hear a gradual building in the amplitude or the volume of the sound, and then we would hear the boom, and then we would hear a trail off of that boom. I don't hear that in this sound. The sound here in question is not a jet breaking the sound barrier.
Next, we go to our meteorologist, Juan Hernandez, to test the theory that this might be related to the mysterious phenomena known as skyquakes.
Skyquakes are usually concentrated. In this case, it was heard across a large area. Therefore, it's more than likely something else other than a skyquake.
When Hernandez goes to look up the weather conditions in Pittsburgh that day, he makes a startling discovery. Using the Geo-13 geothermal lightning mapper, the National Weather Service reported a flash on their satellite around 11:30 a.m., the same time as the boom.
It did pick up a couple of flashes that occurred out in western Pennsylvania, and they were able to confirm that it was definitely a bolide that was entering the Earth's atmosphere. A bolide is a meteorite that is coming towards the Earth.
But how could a bolide hurtling toward Earth go unseen and leave no trace of impact?
Whenever we're talking about meteorites entering the Earth's atmosphere, most of them actually burn up. Now, unfortunately, it was a cloudy day, but if it were to be nighttime, this would have been something that those across Western Pennsylvania would have definitely seen if they were outdoors.
So it's a meteorite. Every year, the Earth is hit by about 6,000 of them, large enough to reach the ground. That's about 17 a day. The vast majority fall and go undetected in uninhabited areas.
September 30th, 2018. It's a sunny, blue sky day in the suburbs of Indianapolis, Indiana. After purchasing a brand new camera, Scott Hansen steps into his backyard looking for something interesting to photograph and glances up to see the daytime moon. He takes out his camera and points it skyward, but then, zooming in, is shocked to see this. An oval-shaped object appears to be hovering just above the moon. Look closely. You can see it has a bright white outline with a darker interior. Then, as Scott continues to film, it slowly disappears behind the moon.
I posted it to YouTube immediately. I had a lot of people excited, and some people thought it might be from out of this world.
So what is it? According to writer Amy Title, some believe we may be witnessing an ancient prophecy coming true.
Some people watching this video theorize that the object near the moon is the planet of Nibiru, which is part of an end-of-the-world prophecy that said Earth and Nibiru would collide in a cataclysmic event, effectively ending the world.
Believers will tell you the proof has been recorded in antiquity.
There are some modern writers who have pointed to Sumerian tablets as having record that Nibiru has an orbital period of 3,600 years. People who believe in Nibiru's existence generally believe that it orbits the sun, but that it can come very close to the moon's orbit with some regularity.
While the idea of an unknown planet may seem like fantasy, in 2015, researchers at Caltech found mathematical evidence suggesting there may be a Planet X deep in our solar system. It's hypothetically a gas giant in a highly elongated orbit and may take between 10,000 and 20,000 Earth years to make one revolution around the sun. Is this object some other type of previously unknown world? And if not, what the heck is it? Let's see what our experts think.
We begin with aviation expert Tim McMillan. Could we just be seeing something that is supposed to be up there, like, say, the International Space Station?
The International Space Station moves around the Earth relatively fast. It would appear to be just a small speck in the sky as it's traveling across. But this appears to be moving behind the moon. So that doesn't make sense.
McMillan also points out an important clue, which confirms it can't be any other human-made object.
Now, it looks really tiny when we're looking through this viewfinder, but if we were to put this comparatively of how big it would be to the moon, this is huge.
In fact, as the moon has a circumference of almost 6,800 miles, this object would have to be about 100 miles across. So McMillan thinks there may be another possibility.
That perfect circle that you see here makes me question if we're looking at a artifact of the camera system. Something that's happening with the lens of the actual camera that's filming it.
Could this just be a camera defect? We take that question to astrophotographer Andrew McCarthy.
I spend my entire life observing celestial objects. This doesn't really seem to be an artifact. That wouldn't make sense because the movement appears to travel behind the moon.
If it's not man-made or a camera artifact, could it be a planet?
This video was captured in September 30th, 2018. And we know during this time, Venus was actually on the opposite side of the sky from the moon. So we can safely rule out Venus. But Jupiter and Saturn are both actually visible during the day. However, those were also very far away from the moon at the time this was taken.
However, McCarthy does see a clue in the shadows, which he believes solves the mystery.
When photographing the moon during the day, the dark side of the moon is going to be invisible. But when you look at this video, you see almost like an increase in saturation right along the terminator line.
The terminator is the line that divides the daylight side and dark night side of a planetary body.
That suggests to me that this video was potentially a photograph or a video of the moon taken at night and then superimposed onto a daytime sky.
That leads us to our ace video forensic analyst, Michael Primo.
So the first step is to look at the metadata, and within the EXIF information, there are signatures from After Effects that indicate specific layers in After Effects, including pre-comps, spotlights, other layers of footage. So there were a lot of different ingredients that went into this video, which leads us to that the video is cooked.
Once we presented the evidence to Scott, he came clean.
I like people to watch my videos and consider whether or not they're real or fake. I really enjoy evoking that emotional response in people.
So there you have it. Our verdict, just a classic YouTube hoax for clicks. But the next one might not be. With the recent launch of the James Webb Telescope, we're hoping scientists are going to be on the lookout for that theoretical Planet X, which could lie way past Pluto.
It's September 2016 in the Appalachian Mountains near Pembroke, Virginia. Virginia Tech professor Dr. Marcella Kelly's ecology research team has set up dozens of trail cameras around the Mountain Lake Biological Station to document local wildlife populations like bears and bobcats. But after checking the photos one morning, the researchers detect a much more peculiar creature. At 6:53 p.m., a strange man appears on one of the cameras, stark naked. For the next 20 seconds, a series of snapshots catches him crawling around on camera. Big deal, you'd think. Well, there are 25 trail cam stations here, most just over half a mile to a mile apart. And 23 minutes later, he appears on another one. The internet lights up, theorizing that this man has somehow run for miles on all fours as if possessed by an animal. Marcella says these images came as a bit of a shock.
We have gotten a lot of different interesting animals doing really interesting things, but the one animal that I didn't really expect to get was a human naked man animal.
Journalist Aaron McCarthy says the legend grew in the press.
European newspapers grabbed these photos and they said that what we were looking at was a man who had taken LSD to treat his depression, started to think that he was a Siberian tiger, picked up the scent of an animal, and ran 15.5 miles totally naked.
So this story now involves liars and tigers. But one part of the fake news merits investigation. Might psychedelic drugs play a role in what happened here?
LSD causes you to hallucinate. It allows you to experience things that you wouldn't necessarily experience in your everyday life. PCP causes hallucinations, but it also affects the pain receptors. So people who are on PCP don't experience pain as much.
In another incident from July 2017, a similarly nude man was said to be high on acid when he mutilated himself, vandalized cars, and then fled from police in Chicago. Shamans from indigenous tribes have long used hallucinogens to supposedly do magical things like transforming into animals. Then there's the wild man theory. Could this person have been raised in the woods? We're all familiar with the story of Mowgli from the Jungle Book. Well, it turns out boys like Mowgli do exist.
There was one child discovered in India in the 1950s running around with some wolf cubs. When he was captured, he refused cooked meat, didn't want to wear clothes, bit people. Basically, he was just a wild, wild child.
Strangely enough, this boy, Ramu, is not the only so-called wolf child from India. Going as far back as the 1800s, there have been nearly 50 reports of feral children being found on the subcontinent. So is it possible we're looking at a real-life wolf man?
Biologist Dr. Stephanie Shuttler considers the theory that this man could have grown up in the wilderness.
I definitely don't think he was raised by animals. He doesn't look like he really has been living in the wild. You don't see any dirt on him, no scratch marks, no scars or anything. If it was truly a wild person, you would expect a beard and really long, mangy hair, and we're not really seeing that.
So is it possible that he was just high on drugs and having a bad trip? Anthropologist Kathy Strain says it's possible, but that the drugs used in Native American rituals are meant for a more sedate experience.
Peyote ritual is very quiet. The experience that they're having is in their bodies and in their dreams and in their souls. They don't usually get up and actually interact or do movement. They certainly wouldn't walk a mile or two during that experience.
Yet Strain concedes that this man does show some of the telltale physical signs of drug use.
I can tell that he's under the influence of something because his eyes are quite dilated. They're dilated more than what you would expect for just your eyes adjusting to the dark or having a flash suddenly in your face.
So this man may be in an altered state of mind, but after a thorough review of all the images, we discovered he had his clothes while passing at least one of the cameras. So what does that mean?
When you have a person who sees game cameras and they decide to take off their clothes and make sure they're captured on film, it's because he wanted someone to see him nude. It was a thrill for him.
Our verdict, this is an exhibitionist hiker who spotted some trail cameras and decided to put on a show. We can't know for sure if he was also on some sort of substance, but there is a new movement to use psychedelics as a therapeutic treatment for conditions like addiction, depression, and PTSD.
It's January 2014 in the hottest place in the entire world and the driest desert in North America, Death Valley, California. Jim Norris is part of a scientific research team that's investigating a particular patch of wasteland known as Racetrack Playa, which shows few signs of life, except for this. The photos from Jim's team show side-by-side trails of sand stretching for hundreds of feet, all leading to a field of rocks? That's right, the stones are completely motionless, but the trail behind them suggests they were moving at one time. What's even more mysterious is that these trails often appear overnight.
No one had ever actually observed them moving. It was a mystery that had yet to be solved in the geologic circles, and it seemed to me and some of my friends to be an interesting problem to look at, to see if we could figure out how to solve it.
What's really interesting about these stones is that they appear to have moved themselves. No one, as far as we know, has been down on the floor of the playa moving these stones around.
In fact, these so-called sailing stones have been studied for almost a century, and some believe they might be proof of something called animism.
Animism is this concept that everything, animate, inanimate, rocks, plants, animals, has a soul. Some have wondered if this could actually mean that these rocks are alive. Have they evolved to actually be able to move on their own?
Other popular examples of animism include this Mimosa pudica plant responding to human touch, or this Venus flytrap, which is almost human the way its mouth opens and closes. McCarthy also notes these sailing stones in Death Valley aren't the only rocks said to rock and roll on their own.
There are stones in Romania, called the Living Stones of Romania, which are more officially known as travans, and they actually grow. And some people even believe that they walk and move on their own.
Scientists say trovants grow after heavy rains when the stones actually secrete cement. This is because of a chemical reaction that happens when the minerals in the stones come into contact with large amounts of water. But could our rocks actually be alive and out for an evening stroll? Or is there something more mysterious at play here? Let's turn to our experts to find out.
First, NASA geologist Dr. Bob Anderson analyzes whether the sailing stones could be living rocks like in Romania.
Living rocks means the rock itself has life in it, that it has bacteria or it has plant-like creatures in their sheer act of growing and moving are moving the rocks. But I do not believe that these rocks are living rocks because it is in a desert area. If these rocks are in a very hot area most of the time, the bacteria would have a hard time to live.
But if these stones are not alive, could someone or something just be dragging them across the sand overnight?
For a long time, people thought that they're aliens because you don't see any footprints. So they can't be man-made. Also, some of these rocks that are moving are very large. They're 700-800-pound blocks that people could not move.
So if the rocks aren't living beings and they're too heavy for humans to move, then could their tracks be caused by extreme weather? We turn to meteorologist Juan Hernandez.
We don't see any movement in the summer. It's too hot, it's too dry. The movement that we see with these stones actually occurs mainly in the late winter and into the early spring.
Hernandez thinks that observation provides a key clue. He suspects that under certain conditions, the racetrack playa could turn into a slippery, shallow pond with moving sheets of ice.
You've got 4 conditions that need to be met for this to actually occur. The first of which is the surface has to be wet. So it had to have rained. The second condition, it has to be cold enough to freeze. The third condition, there has to be partial melting. It has to warm up to maybe the upper 30s, lower 40s. That's when the movement starts to happen. And then it has to be windy to push the rocks across that semi-frozen surface.
But can a breeze really move a 700-pound rock? Hernandez explains that the uniqueness of this location may have something to do with it.
Death Valley is known for its extreme weather conditions, so it's likely going to take potentially 30, 40, even 50-mile-an-hour winds to blow across Racetrack Playa.
It's an interesting theory, but is there data to back it up? That's what Jim's team is for. They developed a cool way to measure the sailing stones. Sailing.
We figured out how to design a GPS system that we could embed in a rock that would just sit and wait for the rock to move. And when the rock started to move, it would start recording the change in position.
The GPS data lined up with the weather conditions Hernandez described. And further proof? Morris's team even caught one of the rocks moving over time in this time-lapse footage.
Our verdict, the sailing stones aren't moved by ghosts, aliens, or animist spirits. This is a rare natural phenomenon caused by extreme weather conditions. Death Valley is home to a menagerie of wildlife. Slithering rocks are not among them. But that doesn't mean there's not something hiding under a rock still waiting to be discovered.